She mocked me as not really married at a wedding and danced all night with another man. The next morning, she woke up alone, and by the time the divorce papers arrived, she finally realized the joke was on her. Weddings are supposed to bring people closer. At least, that's what I believed as Melissa and I walked into the grand ballroom decorated with strings of fairy lights, white roses, and a jazz band softly playing in the corner. The bride looked radiant. The groom couldn't stop grinning, and everyone seemed ready to celebrate love. I thought maybe this night could be good for Melissa and me too. We'd had our rough patches, arguments about little things, the stress of work, the way she always seemed to put her friends before me. But still, I believed in us. I wanted this evening to remind her that we were still a team. I carried our coats, balancing her clutch in one hand, while she scanned the room with that restless spark in her eyes. And then, she spotted him. David, her so-called best friend. Her entire face lit up, and she practically jogged across the ballroom in heels to throw herself into his arms. I stood there like an afterthought, holding her things like I was the coat-check boy. They laughed, hugged, and immediately launched into animated conversation, their energy bouncing off each other in a way I hadn't seen from her in a long time. "Hey, babe," Melissa finally said, motioning vaguely in my direction. "You remember David, right?" "Yeah," I replied, forcing a polite smile. "We've met." David barely looked at me as he shook my hand. He was already focused back on Melissa, telling her some story that made her laugh so hard she threw her head back. People nearby glanced over, smiling at the scene. They looked like the stars of the night. I looked like a plus one. Dinner came and went. I made small talk with the people at our table, while Melissa leaned over her chair to whisper to David behind me. Every few minutes, I caught them looking at each other and laughing. Then the music started. "Come on," Melissa squealed, grabbing David's hand. Without a second thought, she pulled him onto the dance floor. And that was where they stayed. Song after song, spinning, twirling, bodies close, eyes locked. At first, I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Weddings are for dancing. Friends dance. It's harmless. But as the hours dragged on, it became impossible to ignore. Every time a slow song played, she didn't even glance in my direction. She stayed glued to him. People noticed. I noticed. Finally, during a pause, one of David's co-workers leaned toward Melissa with a grin. "So, are you married?" he asked, nodding toward me at the table. Melissa didn't even hesitate. She laughed, loud. Tossing her hair back, she said, "Not really. It doesn't count when he's boring." The table erupted in laughter. David smirked, shaking his head as if to say, "Classic Melissa." And me? I sat there, my hands gripping the edge of my chair, my chest tight, heat crawling up the back of my neck. My wife had just reduced me to a punchline in front of a room full of people. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? If I protested, I'd look weak. If I got angry, I'd look insecure. So I just sat there, silent, watching. The rest of the night blurred together in fragments. Melissa twirling in David's arms. Melissa whispering in his ear. Melissa brushing past me on her way to the bar, barely acknowledging I existed. By the time the last song played, I felt hollow. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses, they all sounded muffled, distant, like I was underwater. When the reception ended, Melissa stumbled back to our hotel room, tipsy and giddy. She kicked off her heels, collapsed onto the bed still in her dress, and fell asleep instantly. "No, thank you for tonight. No, I love you." Not even a glance in my direction. I stood there for a long time, just looking at her. My wife. The woman I'd promised forever to. And all I could think was, maybe forever ended tonight. I packed in silence. Suitcase, essentials, everything I needed. By the time dawn crept through the curtains, I was gone. When Melissa woke up, she rolled over, reaching for me. But the bed was empty. My side was cold. Her laughter from last night was still echoing in my head, but this time, it didn't sting. It felt like confirmation. Because sometimes the quietest goodbye is the loudest message of all. The hotel room was eerily quiet when Melissa finally stirred awake. I wasn't there to hear it, but I can imagine the way she blinked against the sunlight, rubbed her temples, and reached for me out of habit. Her hand landed on cold sheets. That's when she probably noticed the open closet door, the missing suitcase, the absence of my shoes by the door. By the time she picked up her phone, she had already missed 3 of my unread messages. I hadn't written paragraphs, just 3 short lines. "You humiliated me. You made your choice. I've made mine. She must have read them over and over, because within minutes, my phone lit up with calls. I watched them come through from the quiet lobby of the airport, sipping a burnt cup of coffee. I didn't answer. Melissa left voicemails, first confused, then angry, then pleading. Where are you? This isn't funny, come back. Okay, maybe I went too far, but you're overreacting. Please, don't do this. We'll talk when you get here. By the fourth voicemail, her voice cracked. I didn't mean it like that. You know I love you. Please, just pick up. But I didn't. I boarded my flight, staring out the window as the plane lifted off the runway. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control, not passively enduring, not swallowing insults disguised as jokes, not pretending I was okay. I had chosen to leave. Meanwhile, back home, Melissa's panic was beginning to spread. Her texts shifted from me to our mutual friends. Screenshots started trickling in. She was asking if anyone had seen me, if I'd said anything to them. He left this morning, no explanation, she wrote. I think he's upset over something that happened at the wedding. Can you talk to him? Some of them messaged me privately. What happened last night? She seems frantic. I didn't tell them everything. Just enough. She embarrassed me in front of everyone. I need space. Word traveled fast. Soon, even the bride, her college friend, was messaging me. I saw what she said, she admitted. Honestly, I cringed. We all did. I don't blame you. That was the thing. Melissa thought she had been funny, that everyone was laughing with her. But the truth? They weren't. People noticed the way I sat there in silence, my face unreadable, while she kept dancing with David like I didn't exist. They noticed, and they remembered. By the time Melissa got home later that day, the weight of her actions had started to sink in. She called me again, crying this time. Please, just come home. We can fix this. I didn't mean what I said. You know I was drunk. But drunkenness doesn't plant new thoughts. It only waters the ones already there. I listened to her message once, then deleted it. The days that followed were strange. For years, my life had been tightly woven with hers. Now I had space. I stayed with an old college friend who had a spare room, grateful for the distance. I started running in the mornings again, something I'd abandoned when Melissa complained that it cut into our time. I reconnected with coworkers, grabbed beers after work, laughed without constantly glancing at my phone for her texts. Melissa, meanwhile, spiraled. She showed up at my office once, makeup smudged, hair messy, eyes red. She begged for just 10 minutes to talk. I told the receptionist to send her away. She left flowers at my friend's apartment. I didn't bring them upstairs. She sent long emails, paragraphs about our history, the good times, the life we built. But none of those memories erased what she had done in one night, in one careless sentence. It wasn't just the dancing. It wasn't just the comment. It was the years of little digs, the jokes at my expense, the way she dismissed me whenever David was around. That night was simply the mask slipping. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her safety net. The boring man who paid bills, cooked dinner, stayed loyal, while she craved the thrill of being adored by someone else. And I realized something freeing. I didn't have to keep being that man. Melissa's desperation turned to anger soon after. Her texts went from, please come home, to you're ruining everything over nothing, to you'll regret this when you realize no one else will love you like I do. But even in her anger, there was fear. Because for once, she wasn't the one holding control. One evening, about a week later, David himself reached out to me. A casual message on Facebook. Hey man, sorry if I crossed a line at the wedding. I didn't mean to step on your toes. I didn't reply, but I couldn't help thinking. Even he saw the line, and Melissa didn't. The truth was clearer than ever. She wasn't sorry about what she did. She was sorry about the consequences. She was sorry that the man she thought would always endure it finally decided to walk away. And as I sat in that borrowed bedroom, scrolling through her desperate messages, I realized I didn't feel anger anymore. Not even sadness. I felt relief. Because Melissa had been right about one thing. Maybe I was boring to her. But boring was better than disrespect. Boring was better than betrayal. And boring was the man who finally found the courage to choose himself. Update 1. That it's been just under a month since that wedding night, and the dust hasn't really settled. But it has cleared enough for me to see the shape of my new life. Melissa hasn't stopped reaching out. At first, it was the voicemails and emails, pages of apologies, promises that it didn't mean anything, begging me to come home. Then it turned into guilt trips. You're throwing away for years. You're humiliating me by ignoring me. Everyone thinks you're being dramatic. Then came the shift. 2 weeks ago, she showed up outside my friend's apartment building. I only knew because my phone started blowing up while I was in the middle of a run, and when I got back, the doorman told me a woman had been lingering in the lobby asking what floor I was on. The old me would have felt guilty, would have thought, she's hurting, maybe I should just talk to her. But the man I am now saw it for what it was, manipulation. She wasn't here to repair anything. She was here to drag me back into her orbit. I didn't go down. I didn't call her back. She eventually left, and later that night, I got a furious text. You think ignoring me makes you stronger? You're pathetic. David doesn't even like me like that. You idiot. You ruined everything for nothing. That was the moment it clicked fully. She wasn't sorry for disrespecting me. She was sorry she lost her grip on me. And yet, strangely enough, I didn't even feel anger. Just a kind of detached sadness, like watching someone you once loved drown in their own choices while you're standing safely on shore. Meanwhile, life has started moving forward for me in ways I didn't expect. The first real turning point was when one of my coworkers, Jenna, invited me to join a trivia night with some people from the office. I almost said no. Old habits die hard, and Melissa used to hate when I went out without her. But I pushed myself to say yes. It was fun, really fun. We laughed, drank cheap beer, yelled out wrong answers, and stayed until closing time. No one made digs at me. No one treated me like a backup plan. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't shrinking myself to make someone else shine. I'm not saying there's romance there. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I realized something that night. I'm allowed to enjoy life without someone constantly measuring me against her fantasy of better. Around the same time, word about what happened at the wedding started making the rounds. Mutual friends began reaching out, some quietly expressing support. A couple admitted that they'd been uncomfortable with Melissa's behavior for a while. One of them told me point blank, honestly, man, the way she laughed with David, it was humiliating. We all saw your face. You didn't deserve that. Validation. That's what it felt like. For so long, Melissa had convinced me that I was too sensitive, too insecure, boring, whenever I expressed hurt. But now, other people were confirming what I had felt deep down. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I had been disrespected blatantly. And then came the bombshell. Last week, David himself texted me again. This time, not with an apology, but with something different. I think you should know, Melissa's been coming around a lot. She says you two are just taking space, and that you'll forgive her soon. I don't want to be in the middle of this. That message hit me like a confirmation of everything I suspected. Melissa wasn't trying to win me back. She was hedging her bets, dangling herself between me and David, hoping one of us would eventually catch her. It was the final nail in the coffin for any doubt I had. I didn't reply to David. Instead, I called my lawyer. Yes, my lawyer. I hadn't mentioned this before, but I quietly started divorce proceedings 2 weeks ago. Melissa and I are legally married, and untangling that knot is going to take time. But I wanted to be ahead of the game before she could complicate things. I froze our joint accounts, pulled my name off utilities, and had the paperwork drafted. My lawyer suggested we serve her soon, before she could try to retaliate financially. So that's where things stand now. Melissa thinks she's just dealing with a cold shoulder. She doesn't know that the next envelope she receives will be from my lawyer, not from me. And how do I feel? Strangely calm. I thought leaving her would devastate me. 4 years together, countless shared memories. It should hurt more. But the truth is, I feel lighter than I have in years. I run every morning. I've been cooking meals for myself without someone complaining they're too healthy or too bland. I've been reading again, catching up on books that gathered dust on the shelf. Most importantly, I feel like I'm finally respecting myself. Melissa once told me that being with me was safe, that she could always count on me. I realize now what she meant. I was her plan B, her backup, the boring man who would never leave, no matter how much she humiliated me. She was wrong, because I left. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of what comes next. Final update. The papers have been served. I wasn't there when Melissa opened the envelope. Her reaction reached me through the grapevine, from mutual friends who still float between both sides. But apparently, it wasn't quiet. She screamed, slammed the door on the process server, and later blew up my phone with 15 missed calls and a wall of texts. The tone of her messages jumped all over the place. You can't be serious. This is insane. We just had a fight. Couples fight. How dare you humiliate me like this? Everyone will think I'm the bad guy. Then, hours later, I'll do better. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut David off. Please don't throw this away. But by then, it wasn't about David anymore. It wasn't even about the wedding. It was about respect. And once that's gone, nothing grows in its place. I didn't respond. My lawyer advised me not to, and honestly, I didn't have anything left to say. Melissa escalated in the days after. She tried reaching my family, spinning the story to make it sound like I was abandoning her over one joke. But my parents, who had quietly witnessed years of her dismissiveness, weren't swayed. My mom told me later, "We knew something like this was coming. We just didn't expect you to finally stand up and walk." Some of our mutual friends took her side, the ones who always thrived on her drama, who found her jokes funny because they weren't the target. But others, more than I expected, sent me quiet messages of support. "You did the right thing," one said. "We all saw how she treated you. You deserve better." And then came the part that even I hadn't predicted. David distanced himself too. One of Melissa's old college friends told me she had shown up at David's place multiple times, crying, demanding he be honest about his feelings. But David, apparently, wanted nothing to do with it. He wasn't interested in being her rebound or in competing with the man she had just lost. Melissa, who always thought she had options, suddenly found herself with none. Her texts reflected that shift. The anger and bargaining turned to raw despair. "Please don't do this. I can't breathe without you. You're my whole life. I messed up, but we can fix it. I'll do anything. Please, I'll change." And for a moment, just a moment, I felt that old tug of guilt. The echo of years where I was the fixer, the one who absorbed the hurt and kept us together. But then I remembered sitting at that wedding table, watching her laugh in another man's arms while dismissing me as boring. I remembered the audience's laughter ringing in my ears, the hollow pit in my chest, the way she didn't even glance back at me. That was the moment she lost me. And you don't come back from that. The legal process itself has been cleaner than I expected. We didn't share kids, and because I acted quickly, I froze the accounts before she could drain them. She tried contesting the prenup, but the lawyer who drew it up did solid work. It held. She's angry about finances, of course. Told me I was leaving her with nothing. The irony is, she always mocked me for being boring with money, saving instead of splurging, planning instead of living in the moment. Now, the boring habits are the only reason I'm secure while she scrambles. And me? I've been good. Surprisingly good. I moved out of my friend's spare room into a small apartment closer to work. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. No tension, no silent treatment, no constant walking on eggshells. Just peace. I've kept running 3 to 4 mornings a week. My times are improving. I've lost 10 pounds, gained back muscle I hadn't seen since college. My coworkers joke that I look younger. I've been cooking, too. Not to please anyone, just for me. I've rediscovered the joy of putting on music, chopping vegetables, tasting as I go. Melissa used to roll her eyes at my weird healthy experiments. Now I get to savor them alone, and they taste better than ever. And socially, I'm reconnecting. Trivia nights have become a regular thing. A few weekends ago, I went hiking with a group from work. I laughed so much that my cheeks hurt the next day. It's almost embarrassing to admit, but I'd forgotten what it felt like to be around people who genuinely enjoy your company. As for Melissa, she's still reaching out occasionally, though the messages have slowed. The last one came 3 days ago. "I saw a couple at dinner tonight, and it made me think of us. Please, I miss you. Just tell me if there's a chance." I didn't respond. Because here's the truth, there isn't a chance. Walking away that night at the wedding was the hardest, simplest thing I've ever done. Hard, because it went against years of conditioning, years of being the man who stayed, who endured, who forgave. Simple, because in that moment, I finally saw her for who she really was. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. People ask if I'll date again. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not closing the door. But for now, I'm content just being me, rebuilding, breathing, reclaiming the parts of myself I let shrink in her shadow. Melissa thought she could humiliate me and I'd still stay. That I was her safety net, her fallback, her boring constant. But she was wrong. And as I sit here tonight, typing this in my quiet apartment with a glass of wine on the table and my running shoes drying by the door, I realized something simple. I didn't just leave her. I chose myself. And for the first time in years, that feels like enough.